TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows.
Oh, my ticket!
Everybody loves Hippo Toad.
Scary dog!
Dancing at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a what? What's the matter? I'm trying to do a show. Wait, what now? Okay. I've just been handed this.
I knew this. This felt like a bit. All right, let's go.
No, I was just
Okay.
handed something.
All right.
W2M Network is merging with American Whammy Productions and will eventually become American Whammy Media. Therefore, we here at Radulich and Broadcasting will be doing the same. So everything involved with W2M and the Radulich and Broadcasting Network will eventually become an American Whammy podcast.
Anything else?
So, all right, I'll try it again. Good evening. You are listening to an American Whammy podcast TV party tonight. How does that?
That's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah.
We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just going to start calling myself American Whammy, by the way.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah. I'm
There you
changing
got
my
Cody
name
Rhodes.
legally.
Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare. Mark
Yeah.
Radulich, the American Whammy.
I am now the American Whammy, Mark Radulich.
Oh, shoot.
I was a
That's
man
amazing.
once. I have been subsumed by the man.
Yes, indeed.
I was a man, now I've been subsumed by the man, and now I am no longer my own person. We are American Whammy. We are American Whammy. Not
Press
Marshall.
your luck, people.
We are
Don't
not
press your
Marshall.
luck.
We are not
Not
Marshall.
Marshall. Okay.
No.
All right.
We are definitely not the Radulich and Broadcasting Network anymore. Matter of fact,
Got
did you see on the screen the overlay's gone?
I wasn't paying attention to anything. I see that. Yep, I noticed it, Mark.
Yep. So
I
how
sure
do
did.
you feel about this, Jesse?
Well, it's a change. That's
An end
for
of an
sure.
era. That's what it is.
It's definitely going to be some changes. It feels like on the horizon. I can't really speculate as to what is going to change. I mean, other than what we've been told, is just that everything should remain the same. We're just going to be under a different banner.
Do you realize
And,
that as my primary, Jesse, my number one love,
That's right.
you have been a part of a lot of firsts here on the American Whammy podcast.
Wow. Yep, counting today. That's for sure.
You were on the first video.
I was, wasn't
That's
I?
right. Yeah.
Wow, this is a whole new world.
I mean, if you go back
Holy
far
moly.
enough, Robert has you beat. Robert
Right.
Winfrey has been by far the longest American Whammy
yeah.
podcaster on the American
Yes.
Whammy Podcast Network.
He got me beat by like a day.
I mean, you started off as a super fan.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's right. I'm sorry. We were.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought maybe it was. Well, I thought
You got to
maybe
go all the
it
way
was
back to like
counting after-
2011 with the 411 Ground and Pound radio show.
That's
with
right. Yeah, he's
Scott
definitely got some
Kachowski
history.
and Jeff Harris and Pat
Definite
Mullen.
history. That's
Yeah.
right. There's
Yeah.
some iconic names right there.
But you Starcher, Jessicans, big time. You're my primary.
Time.
You're the number one. Mwah.
Nothing
All right.
but You're silly.
So Ozark is
Yeah, buddy.
is our favorite show here on the American Whammy podcast, which presents TV Party Tonight. And Ozark, as people may know, is an American crime drama streaming television series created by Bill Dubuque and Mark Williams for Netflix and produced by MRC Television and Aggregate Films. The series stars Jason Bateman, Laura Linney, who's the worst, as Marty and Wendy Byrde, a married couple who moved their family to the Lake of the Ozarks for money laundering. Bateman also serves as director and executive producer for the series. In June of 2020, the series was renewed for a fourth and final season consisting of 14 episodes split into two parts. The first part was released on January 21st, while the second was released on April 29th, 2022. All right, so when we last left our heroes, they were down in Mexico with the leader of the Mexican cartel. You'll probably be better with the names than I am.
Navarro.
And Navarro, yeah. And they had shot the
Navarro.
lawyer in the
Navarro.
they had shot the lawyer in the head, like on the tarmac, and her brains were all over. Got all over Jason Bateman and Laura Linney, who's the worst, by the way. Laura Linney is the worst. Hell of an actress, but her character.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Laura Linney's the best. It's
yeah.
Oh my gosh, man, the character she plays is just so horrible.
Wendy is
is horrible.
On the scale, let's just talk about this for TikTok. Okay.
All right.
On a
TikTok,
scale of
TikTok content, ladies and gentlemen.
Here we go. For TikTok purposes, where do you think Wendy resides on the worst TV wife/mom?
Ooh.
I mean, there's the broad from Breaking Bad. She's up there, and she's usually my measuring stick.
Really?
If we have you not watched Breaking Bad?
No, never have there, Mark. Never. I don't even know. I've never heard of the show. That seemed awful convenient that I'm wearing this shirt tonight.
Yeah, really. Like, well done. You planned that, or?
Yeah, I mean, she was bad. It was. Skylar.
Skylar. Yeah, Skylar was terrible.
Yeah, it was. She's definitely the worst. I don't know, man.
I don't remember Mackie's wife being that awful. She wasn't great.
Wendy's in the running for sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of the worst wives that I can think of off the top of my head, and there's been some bad ones. I mean, aside from like, serial killer stuff, maybe, but I mean, Wendy's up there. Wendy is definitely up there.
Wendy might be like I think for a while, I think it was well agreed upon that Skylar from Breaking Bad was the worst. I can't think. I mean, maybe if Pat or somebody were here, they could shout out a few more names. But I mean, she's not. It's a little bit different than like the Adrian scale. The Adrian is like just a nag, like worst movie nags.
What Wendy has, the only I don't know, saving grace for her is that she loves her family, but she just loves them in the wrong way. And when I say family, I should say children, because I think that's. I don't think she gives a crap about Jason Bateman. About
let's spend some time and explore this. Let's start off our hour-long discussion about Ozark with talking about the Wendy Byrde character played by Laura Linney. And people who've been listening to TV Party as of late know we're going to be all over the place. We're not going through this episode by episode. We need to talk about the finale at some point, because yikes.
Right.
But and we are talking about the entirety of season 4, both parts, all 14 episodes.
Yeah, right.
So I'm going to just kind of off the cuff here, just talk to my friend about this horrible human being, Wendy Byrde, and see what you think. For me, she is very much self-centered. I can't decide where the midway through marriage dissatisfaction, depression, I could have been a contender stuff ends, and where the psychological dysfunction begins with her. You know what I mean? She is clearly ambitious. She's clearly one of a zillion middle-aged women who seemingly thought they were doing the right thing. And we talked about this with another show recently, where, you have these women who they think they're doing the right thing by becoming wives and mothers. And then they get, 10, 20 years into it, and they go, I regret those. I don't regret the children I have and the love that I had, but I kind of regret making these decisions because I wish I had been something else.
Right. Right.
And there's a lot of that driving her, like a lot of her ambition in the show, a lot of her, like, we can be one of those made families that, you know, we make kings, we have untold riches, we are power players behind the scenes, we are part of the Illuminati, you know, kind of a thing. Part of what's driving that, I think, for her is this desire for validation, like just being a wife and mother and maybe, you know, even a career person just wasn't enough for her. There has to be more.
No. Yeah, it's definitely not enough. And you put it pretty well when you're talking about where one part of it starts and the other part begins. It's all wrapped up in her.
Yeah.
And you kind of, as we go through the season, especially this latter part of the second part of the fourth season, you start to really see that unravel. She is excruciatingly a control freak, it seems like.
Yeah.
Like it has to be. Now, granted,
I think it goes beyond that.
If things begin to get out of control for her,
Mhm.
it's not just, you know, oh, well, that's another day. No, it's her life and her kids' lives and her husband.
I think it's more than just like a control freak thing for her. I think it's more, she is utterly driven by her perception of the world. She has zero empathy. She doesn't see ever Jason Bateman's perspective. Bring me back to Jason Bateman, because if I don't talk like soon about his speech to his daughter about feeling trapped, I'm gonna be mad at myself, and I got to get this out quickly. I may have to stop with Laura Linney and just get into that just for a second. But this idea of, like, she has no empathy. She never sees anyone else's point of view, and she is mad that nobody else seems to be on the same page as her. She's only happy when her point of view is being validated. But she's also like an agent of chaos almost. And I'll bleed that right into like the stuff with Jason Bateman, and we can kind of go back and forth with this, because Jason Bateman's Marty, like, he's just trying to keep a lid on things. I can't remember what initially drove him to do the money laundering in the first place. I think there was an element of, it was kind of exciting. It was a little naughty, but he had a handle on it. He knew what he was doing, and he was getting away with it. Right. When things went sideways, even then he was like, I have a plan. I know how to fix this. And he was all cool as a cucumber about it. And then his wife's like, no, I want a piece of the action too. And I see big things first. And he's like, can we not utterly upend the quiet operation of crime I've got going that is perfectly satisfactory the way it is? And she's like, nope. And just whirlwinds around him 4 seasons later. And I really, really, really identified with the speech that he gives about feeling like if you don't agree with Wendy, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But if you do, if you just give in, now you're not challenging enough, and you can't win. And he just feels utterly bereft of hope. Just, there's nothing for him in this. Like, he clearly loves his children. And I think in some ways he is connected to this woman, if nothing else, because of the legacy of their relationship. But it feels like, with all of her chaos, with all of her mental illness, with all of her ambition, with all of her lack of empathy, with all of her sociopathy, he is utterly drained of all of the things that makes you. I want to read you something really quick.
All right.
I want to read you this, and I want to see if, for you, this feels like Marty and Wendy. Okay. Found this today. Somebody put this on one of my Facebook posts. Signs that you're drained by someone. Do you think Marty dreads interacting with them when interacting with Wendy?
I would agree.
Okay.
Yes.
Number 2, does Marty need to unwind after he talks to Wendy?
Oh man, he does at one point in this season. It's not an unwinding though. He explodes because
he does.
So he needs to unwind. Yes.
Okay. Does Marty vent to others about his interactions with Wendy?
We see that happen. Yes.
With his daughter at the very least.
Right.
Does Marty frequently ignore texts or calls from Wendy?
Well, we see a lot of that going on all over the place with every character, because I think everybody is just getting sick and tired of dealing with everybody
Yeah,
else.
everyone's about done.
Yeah.
Number 5. Marty, does he find himself having to talk through challenges with Wendy with others?
Well, I mean,
At least with his daughter.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's such a, he's not broadcasting what he's doing with anybody else, so it's kind of hard to find some people to confide in.
And it's also not that kind of show. This isn't necessarily a family drama, such as it is. It's a crime drama that has family drama in it.
Right.
Just to kind of get through this. Does Marty feel exhausted, sad, or anxious after the interactions with Wendy?
I will say yes.
Every goddamn scene. He is less exhausted talking to Ruth.
Take a shot every time he hangs his head. Like when he gets ready to say something, then
you will be blackout drunk. You will have fucking liver failure. Does Marty? Hey Jesse. Does Marty minimize his issues because he doesn't want to give Wendy ammunition to talk about herself?
Probably.
Okay. Does Marty make up excuses to spend less time with her?
Well, I mean, I don't know if he can avoid that. Although they do their fair share of being apart.
Yeah. Does Marty experience physical symptoms of anxiety, such as stomach aches or headaches? Well, we didn't see that so much.
No, he wasn't physically ailing, but you can see the distress upon his movements of his body. His body
He
language.
looked like he had a hump at one point.
Oh, God. Yeah, he done did. Yeah.
Yeah. Lastly, do you think Marty can't stop thinking about his interactions with Wendy?
Yeah, that's yeah. Yeah. All those things pretty much fit.
Signs Marty is being drained by Wendy. And that is a big part of season 4 by far. Yeah. And I really, 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 really identified with how Marty was feeling. Like that scene with the daughter where he's just like, I'm spinning in a circle and I don't know where to go and I feel trapped. The game is rigged.
And it takes a lot, just as fathers, we try not to burden our children with
absolutely
how our emotional baggage at the time or whatever. And I know that's what Marty and to an extent Wendy was trying to do. They're trying to avoid putting this pressure on their children. Yeah. But of course, as the series unfolds, the kids become involved in these operations. And
we can transition to that if you want. Look at what happens with oh gosh, the son's name, Jonah. Like within minutes of the episode of the back half of season 2. Might have even been season 1. I binged the whole thing, all 14 episodes this past Friday, so I may have my timeline wrong. Woo. But like he almost immediately, in the wake of the uncle being killed, just leaves the family. Yeah. Like you're talking about you don't want to burden your kids with your emotions, and that's 100% true. And the great thing about that scene with Marty, Jason Bateman, is he almost disassociates the fact that that's his daughter he's talking to. Mm-hmm. He's so in need of like unburdening his soul about everything that's gone on with Wendy. That could have been you, a cactus, my son. It could have been Navarro. He'd have had the same speech. Right.
Yeah. I think he finally came to a point where he had to try and talk to somebody about it. And, his daughter, for all intents and purposes, has a bit of maturity, and he probably felt that she could handle what he was saying. But again, it takes a lot. Even as an adult, your kid's an adult, you still don't want to tell them what's wrong with your life and what you're trying to provide for them. You don't want to show cracks. You want to show everything as stacked up, cemented, no cracks whatsoever in your life and lifestyle. But it took a lot for Marty. This season is where you get to see, of all the challenges that Marty has faced, it's finally coming to a head where he has to do something, and things are falling apart around him. And Wendy, of course, is the impetus for just about every bit of it. Every single bit of it.
Well, going back to season 1, I can't remember totally what the setup was, but essentially he had X amount of money he had to launder over Y amount of time. He had been hip to the Ozark by his partner, who ends up getting killed, if I remember correctly, by the cartel. And he was like, okay, I'm going to steal his idea. I'm going to go launder money in the Ozark, and I just won't tell anyone about it, and it'll be fine, and we'll get this done. He had Marty wasn't in it for himself. And over the course of 4 seasons of this series, what becomes very evident is how out of control it has all become, because instead of just doing a simple job, it became this whole other big thing driven by all the things we talked about in the first 10 minutes of this review. Of, Laura Linney pursuing the brass ring, just to keep it simple, and how resentful he is about it.
Yeah.
And I want to say this, and I want to get your response to this, and we can bat some stuff around. Something that Ruth said really resonated with me too. If I can stop being, talking about my own personal resonance with this show for just a moment, my own little therapy session. Ruth says to somebody, I don't remember who, she was like, getting involved with the Byrdes, you're putting yourself and your family at risk. Everyone they have touched, they have burned. And when you think about Darlene's husband, that whole operation they had with the preacher and the Bibles and, dealing heroin during lake church services. Right, that's all gone. Ruth's half or almost all of Ruth's family is gone. She comes back later, but the gal who run the Blue Cat, she's gone. She lost everything for a while.
Right.
When you think about the amount of people who have been burned by this family, I mean, I don't know how you personally feel about the Ruth character, but I think she has she's over the course of 4 seasons, she's really come into her own, and she has a very poignant point of view.
Right. Yeah. As far as Ruth goes, you're looking at probably one of the most likable characters out of the series that, man, you can't believe you would actually root for somebody like that. She comes from a history of a family that's been in low-level crime, drugs, whatever, and the Langmore name, the Langmore curse. You're kind of you're basically destined to just follow in the footsteps, the criminal footsteps of those that came before. And you see her as she's doing these criminal things for Marty throughout the series. Then she's obviously running at loggerheads with Wendy and deciding, okay, I'm breaking away from all that. And she's going to run her own thing, especially for Darlene and her cousin Wyatt. Right.
Yep.
And then when all that goes away, she finally is she's the one that decides that she wants to try and legitimize herself. She tries to get her record expunged. She wants to become a businesswoman. And so you're rooting for her. She's definitely got her, you said a poignant character, a point of view. She's, like I said, she's who I'm rooting for. Is she the one that's making the best choices? Absolutely not.
No, but anyone in any crime series ever always making the best choices. It's like
there's one person.
Life's blood of these things are like poor choices.
One person that I will point out, and we might talk about her, but I'll try to remember. But I believe the one person that does kind of stand out that made the one right choice this season was Maya, the liaison, or the lady that Marty was working with to try and get in with the FBI, who makes a decision like out of the blue to just be like, all right, they're going to let Omar Navarro go back on a plane to Mexico. And she's like, nah, you know what? And she steps up and makes the arrest because that's the good thing to do.
Just martyred herself. Absolutely. She was like, I'm going to do the right thing. Yeah. I'm dead basically in the FBI, but damn it.
Yeah.
I got to sleep with myself at night. And this is the most important thing.
She's got to look at herself in the mirror. But that's the only person. And it is by far she's kind of a main character, but she is not what we solely focus on throughout this series. So
Mhm.
of all the characters that have showed up, I'd say she's the one that probably was the most just. Even the detective, oh my goodness, what was his name? Gosh darn gee, I can't remember his name now. Some weird last name, but anyway,
Yeah.
the detective that's investigating Ben's death.
Yeah.
Even he,
Oh, the
you know,
PI. The PI.
yeah, I cannot remember his name. Yeah, PI, not detective. He was a detective, I think, with the PD. But anyway, even he, as just as you think he is, he has those moments where he makes the wrong decisions. Always
Mhm.
seemed like Maya was the one that kind of like was the just one, in my opinion. But anyway, are you looking for his name?
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
Daggone, I cannot remember the guy's name.
Yeah,
It's such a weird last name too.
He had such like that. His the actor who plays him gave such a funny performance. Like,
Yeah.
just, yeah. I couldn't quite figure out what he was going for. You know, like I'm just looking for his signature. Like, are you trying to be incompetent? Are you faking incompetence because that's how you get people off guard? What are you doing? It's such a weird performance that he gives. Anyway, it's a fun character. We sort of are all over the place here. Let's keep with Ruth for just a minute.
Absolutely.
She has some really interesting stuff that happens to her this season. Do we want to get into? We're going to save the finale for the very end. Just talk about everything that happens.
Yeah. Let's. I mean, if we can.
Okay.
If not, doesn't matter. But I think we ought to.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff that happens.
So Ruth and Jonah bond at the beginning of the season because Jonah is mad at the whole family for letting what happened to Ben happen, and so he's like, "I want to launder money. If my dad can launder money, I can launder money. And in fact, I think I can do it better, as you would as a 14-year-old boy. You always think, you can do better than your dad.
Yeah, you can do better than that. Yeah.
But I think he's also trying to find a face of belonging outside of the people he feels that have betrayed his family.
Right.
And he has a great line to his sister. I really liked the Jonah character this season. He has a line to his sister about, would you, something along the lines of, they killed Ben because Ben was mentally ill. Would you kill me? And she was like, well, you're not mentally ill. And then later on, they revisit that same thing. He's like, all I needed you to tell me was you wouldn't kill me, jerk. I don't know if it's just the maturity, or the maturity of the actor, the maturity of the character, but Jonah really comes into his all, I think. Because the first couple of seasons, he's sort of palling around with the old man, and he's palling around with the uncle, and he's just sort of this, awkward kind of aspy teenager. And here, I really felt like he was fully developed as a person, as a character. I liked his interactions with Ruth. He had she had to be in her 20s, Ruth?
Yeah, I think so.
And he's 14, and they have like a weird sexual chemistry. Like, there's yikes. But I couldn't not acknowledge it. The two of them were kind of hot on screen together, and they don't ever touch. There's no actual sex between them, but there was a spark there a couple of times, and I don't know if they just lucked into it, because obviously it wasn't that way in the beginning, 4, 5, 6 years ago when this started, but it's there now.
Yeah. And those two characters, they really, obviously, the reason those two are finding themselves together in the season is because of the death of Ben. Both of them, it was Jonah's uncle, it was Ruth's boyfriend, and they really, again, resented the fact that Wendy had him killed, which they knew, right? I mean, Jonah knew this, and Ruth knew this, and of course, they had to keep it quiet because of what was going on. So they were going to probably at least work together at some point. So it makes sense for Jonah to be like, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm done. Where can I go? Well, I'll go hang out at Ruth. Ruth's got like 20 rooms at her hotel. I'll just find a place there. It's as far as Ruth goes, just watching her arc throughout the fourth, especially the end of that first part of the fourth season when Wyatt gets killed. We talked about Darlene Snell, who was the
My God, we have to talk about Javi, but that was so brutal and so like nonchalant. Like he just puts a bullet in both of their heads, like, and they're done.
Yeah, as soon as Javi so Javi, by the way, for any of those that are listening, I don't know why you'd listen to this and not watch the series, but Javi is Omar Navarro's nephew.
Yeah,
and he is kind of keeping an eye on the birds, making sure that the operation is running smoothly for the cartel. But he is
really
ruthless.
really wants to kill Marty, by the way.
He's ruthless and brutal. And boy, is he like, he is so swarmy, so cocky. And he knows that he can kill you or he can have you killed. And he acts
he throws kind of a tantrum at one point. I think it was after Marty gave up the gun deal so that it would make it look like it would sweeten things for the FBI for Navarro. And so Javi comes home and he's like, what the hell? And he's like, I'm going to take care of things. And his uncle's like, enough already with you. Stop. And then he like storms off. And Navarro just sort of has this really funny line delivery about the baby's crying, which cracked me up. Hey, real quick. I just want to remind everybody that Grammarly, for you listeners of TV Party Tonight, a American Whammy production, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, it's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free. So let's talk about Javi. So he gets introduced this season, and he's the American educated heir to the throne, and he's a little too big for his britches. And he's, and Navarro, the whole setup to this season is basically Navarro wants to step down. He wants a deal with the FBI where basically he's an informant, but he gets protected from prosecution, and then he can just retire, basically. He can let Javi run the business. His children can pursue a life of fancy, and he won't ever go to prison. That's what he wants. And so a lot of what drives season 4 is Marty and Wendy trying to get the FBI to give him what he wants. And could the FBI be any more like concrete and douchebaggy?
They have that. I wish I could remember that one guy that comes in there with a director, because you've seen him in, oh my gosh, I want to say 24. He always plays some kind of government.
He just plays that same character. You're government guy. You're angry, stupid government guy.
Right.
Terrific.
Right. But yeah, they're, they throw things for a loop when they're like, no, we want to keep you guys in power so we can take care. Just give us some shipments and make us look good. And at first it's 5 years. And then I think when they get Javi at the table, because Javi sits down and they're like, how about 10 years? You stay there for 10 years and do all this for us. So yeah, the FBI is a bunch of douche nozzles, not making things any easier. I'm glad Maya stuck it to him when she did. But yeah, Javi is, dude. Okay. So the body count, I mean, it's massive this fourth season, and Javi is probably at least 3 or 4 of those people that get killed in there, if I remember correctly, because he ends up like, not only does he kill Darlene Snell, he kills Wyatt.
Yep.
The sheriff really surprised me. Like, the sheriff shows up to investigate the lawyer's house, and there's Javi, and then he just puts a bullet in the sheriff's head. And I'm like, there is a trail somehow of communication that told this guy he was going to the house.
You would be led to believe that it is so easy to commit murder in this country.
Right. Yes.
No, if you watch Ozark, especially this season, you're like, wow, I don't know why we don't commit more murder, because you could just disappear a body and there's no investigation. No, there's no nothing. Nobody cares.
Nothing. But yeah, Javi comes in there, and he's, like I said, that's what makes, I think, him such a other than the fact he's so swarmy, so cocky, and he's just a murderous shitbag. He's going around killing people like it's nothing. And of course he kills Wyatt. And the end of that 4th season, where Ruth finds out that Wyatt's dead, I mean, that's really what sets this whole second part into motion.
I got to tell you,
Go ahead.
So I didn't watch the first part of this when it came out. I waited until now, and I watched it all together. So I didn't realize that when everyone was using the same TikTok sound of, if you want to stop me, you're going to have to fucking kill me. Yeah, I didn't realize that's what that.
Yeah, had
No
no
clue.
idea where that was from.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
like
that's
it
funny.
sounded like Ruth, but I mean, maybe it was from a previous season. I don't know. And then she did it, and I totally had a she said the thing moment.
Oh, you had your glass. You're like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it was Leonardo DiCaprio. Perfect.
yes, indeed.
So
Well,
let's talk about the scene where, I mean, season part one ends with with her desperate to find Javi and put a bullet in his head, and finally she corners Marty and Wendy, and Wendy's like, "Fuck it, I don't even care anymore. Whatever. Let's just put these two in a room, and whatever happens, happens. We're good either way." And Ruth just gets, that's the thing about this show. I think about knock on wood, everybody, or take a drink. I think about The Wire, and how The Wire went both ways, because The Wire made a big deal out of Stringer's death. When he dies at the end, he goes out like a fucking champ. Yeah, Omar and Brother Mozone light him up, and and his final words are, "Get on with it already, motherfucker." But it was a big deal. It was a very dramatic moment, and then the fallout was even better because they had him, and even McNulty's like, "I had him. I was so close."
Yep.
Nothing ever works out for McNulty. Nothing. And then, but like the opposite, Omar, who is this big mythical character in The Wire, takes two in the dome from like an elementary school child. He's from what was the kid's name?
Oh, you got me. I can't.
Yeah, I used to know it too, because they said his name a bunch in the show.
I could start naming homicide villains, but that's not going to work.
He was a season 4 character. Yeah, I don't remember. He worked for Naaman. He was one of those kids. Okay. He was a really little kid. In any case, it was like right on the tip of my tongue too. But yeah, he takes two in the dome from that kid, very like nonchalantly, utterly undramatic. And I was thinking about this show. There's not a dramatic murder in the bunch. Like Ruth shoots Javi, and it's like she walks into frame.
Right. You're led to believe, number one, you're led to believe that is this another dream sequence?
Right.
Because they play it up that she's having these daydreams of killing him, and you're wondering if she's going to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she does, I think that's probably about the only reason that it feels shocking, is because they've fucking swerved you a couple times going into it. So, but yeah, she just comes right up, bam, bam, bam. He's laying on the ground. And you're just waiting for the cut, waiting for the fade away for her to wake up or something. Right. No, it actually happened. But yeah, and Darlene and Wyatt, same way.
Like it was nothing. Like they weren't even characters.
The hitman that pulls up to the driveway and gets shot by the rifle from the Blue Cat manager.
Yeah. She fucking snipes him. That's great.
Yeah, and he's like trying to get up, and boom, down he goes again. But yeah, they're not very dramatic. I mean,
and again, it's shot from far away, so you don't get it up close or anything. But you could totally see him like a question mark over his head. Like wait, what?
Wait, what's supposed to happen? Wait a second. Wait just a minute.
Who got the drop on me?
Yeah, and the sheriff dying, the sheriff getting killed was just kind of like, boom, boom, boom. All right, he's dead. So yeah,
I think we're into the back half of things here. So I think we need to start talking about the finale, because I'm going to need some time to process this. So keeping with in keeping with utterly non-dramatic deaths. So Navarro, there's an agreement that happens with the FBI. Javi's gone now. Navarro's in prison because of what because of what the FBI agent did. And they're still trying to work out a deal. And I think there's a period where Jason Bateman's running the cartel, which was probably my favorite part of this entire season. Like him just utterly like bereft of emotion.
Right.
I want to see everyone's books, and he's doing forensic accounting of the Mexican mob, and he's like saying things like, "You're running too many runs here. If we could double this up, you'll save money."
Yeah, right.
It's so good. Like Jason, I love this role for Jason Bateman, because it's such an understated role, and he gives such an understated performance, but it's so like cool. Like Ruth has a line about she just loves to listen to Marty talk.
Yeah,
he's
she's
so
like,
smart.
I used to love the way you talked.
Yeah, because he had such a confidence that was such a confidence about his intelligence. Like he just knew what the right answers were.
And he could fix things. Like his words, when they came out of his mouth, they could fix things, and especially for Ruth. It doesn't matter what was it, her uncle had died, and I mean he's able to talk her into becoming part of the operation after parts of her family died.
Yeah,
and that can only go
in large
so
part
far.
Was his family's fault, if I remember correctly. But yeah, he so he's just like, there's no emotion in it. There's no it's a job. It's all just a job to him. And so he's like, how can we make the mob run more efficiently? And they're listening to him, which is great. But we have to have drama here. We can't just let this go for hours on end. So now the sister is involved, and she causes a hit, and she tries to get her brother killed. And ultimately there's machinations to where we're going to oust Navarro. We're going to get him killed, and she's going to take over the mob. Except that I want
to ask real quick.
Yeah.
I want to ask, did you see, I think it's, I want to say Camilla. I could be completely wrong, but did you see that coming? Did you know that she was the one that ordered the hit before before Marty found out? Because I
predicted it, but I kind of didn't care either. It was one of those meh.
I was like, dude, Marty, you are making a mistake. He's going to kill the wrong guy. And it was probably the one really.
By the way, did you hear they were playing Brujeria?
No, I didn't. Was that what it was?
That was Brujeria,
I was like, man, that's some good death metal. And I was like, okay, all right, nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't see why that guy felt like he was suffering down there. Viva el Presidente Trump.
Presidente Trump.
So, but yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the few times where I was predicting what was happening in the show, and I wondered if they were trying to deceive me in some way. And I kind of didn't like that. But because I was like, so just real quick on, boy, I hope it is Camilla. I'm looking at the cast, but I can't find it. But anyway, Navarro's sister, Omar's sister, you could draw parallels between her and Wendy pretty easily. Power driven, both of them. And who does she confide in and make some of the worst mistakes with? I should say, who does Wendy confide in and make some of the worst mistakes in this latter part of this series? And that's with Camilla.
Yep.
Because she probably sees a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the machinations you were talking about, trying to get Navarro.
They want to get her to run the Mexican mob, essentially.
Yeah. I think it's her. I think that's been her play this whole time.
Sure.
I mean, they don't make that overt, but
the problem is they get to the place where Ruth and the Blue Cat Lady are going to be are going to be not collaborators, but witnesses, partners.
Witnesses.
The witnesses for the FBI. So they are now protected from prosecution. Marty and Wendy are already protected from prosecution, and they're all in agreement that they're going to get, the FBI is going to allow Navarro to get killed, and then Camilla is going to run the mob, and then what the FBI wants is to occasionally seize money from the mob. So essentially, it's like a payola scheme. Essentially the FBI is running protection for the Mexican mob, and the mob pays them their protection money, and this allows that, and then they can rat on other cartels or whatever, like they did in the previous season.
Right.
That is the whole point of all of this. And you think everything is going to be neatly tied up, but Ruth still shot Javi. She still shot the woman's son, and she will not let it stand. And in probably the most dramatic death of the entire season, in the fact that it was not just a quick bang and then they're out of the scene the way it is with everything else. Ruth at least got a slow motion death.
Right.
It wasn't like they were playing Wild Horses by the Sundays or anything while it was happening. But
they probably would have been playing Nos.
Probably. But she takes one in the chest and she falls into the muddy puddle, and that's it. That's the end of Ruth. And I was just curious.
Get it over with then.
I think of all the people who buy it in the end, of all the ways that this show ends, I was probably the most heartbroken that Ruth is the one that couldn't get out alive. After everything, she gets a record cleaned up. She's able to ascend from this white trashy position that she's in into this position of criminal leadership. She's actually trying to get clean, and she doesn't want to launder money at one point, and she's kind of forced to. And Ruth sort of gets to the end of her journey, and she's like, it's like Shawshank Redemption. It's like I came through the tunnel and I came out relatively clean on the other side. I have an opportunity. Bang, you're dead. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a shame.
Well, the thing, I think what makes it most heartbreaking here is that you have Ruth and then you have the Byrdes, and you're looking at which one do you want to see?
Yeah. I wanted Wendy to take a bullet. How does Wendy not take a bullet in this show?
You want to feel the effects of their choices?
Yes.
You know,
wanted Wendy to get punished, and she doesn't.
Right. Ruth ends up dying because of exactly what she said. The Byrdes came to town. And she got involved with the Byrdes, and she died because of what happened. It ruined her. One of the things that, and I'll point this out, that another reviewer mentioned this that I was watching today. She talks about changing her or the curse, the Langmore curse, and at one point she's even offered the opportunity to change her last name, and she decides not to. And they say that when she died, that was the curse fulfilled. She didn't outrun her name, and she didn't outrun the deeds of the Langmore, the Langmore curse that came back to haunt her. But yeah, you wanted to see her come out the victor. Yeah. The only thing in my head canon is that we watched the Byrdes die in the car wreck at the end of the 4th season. Or the beginning of the second part of the 4th season.
Yeah.
And the rest of this second part was just a dream sequence, because the ending is something we're going to have to talk about. But
let's get into it. We have about 15 minutes left. I wanted to just talk about this for an hour and call it. So let's just talk about this now. We talked about Ruth. Everything is neatly tied up, and then Ruth gets shot, and it's a little less neat, but still, we're still going. The one thing that's left over is this entire 2-part season was the PI trying to figure out what happened to the lawyer, who killed the lawyer, and then ultimately who killed Ben and why did Ben die.
Ends up becoming who killed Ben.
Right. And then finally he figures it all out. Like after the Byrdes are basically getting away with everything scot-free, they are ready to go back to Chicago and ascend. He's like, you're the reason Ben's dead.
And they give this guy the opportunity to return to his previous job, which he accepts.
Right.
He accepts that to go back, because what had happened is the PI was on the Chicago PD, I believe, ends up stealing some coke.
Like you do.
Yeah, that happens, and anyway, he gets found out about it, gets fired off the force. So they pull all these strings, because basically he's going to be presenting evidence in court for Wendy's dad to get the kids. And the evidence is going to be showing that she was involved possibly in Ben's disappearance. Well, they pull the strings, and they pull string after string after string. And this guy now has his job back, and he makes the decision to return to Chicago to become a policeman again and not go to court that day. And then at the very end, there he is sitting on the trampoline with Ben's ashes. And he's like, I couldn't do it. I could not. You guys were in the back of my head. And that's exactly what Maya told him too.
Can I tell you my bigger issue was that he wouldn't leave the cookie jar alone? Like no one ever puts anything else in a cookie jar. It's always cookies. It's always cookies. And it's never empty.
Right.
Like he could not let go of that. Like it was a major piece of evidence. He was like, are you telling me there's no cookies in the cookie jar? I have figured out all the murders. Like
he's a good detective. He's a good PI, by golly.
But he has a really great speech, and it kind of sums up the whole journey for the Byrdes. He's like, you don't get to win. You're shitty people. And then Jonah shoots him in the face.
Okay. All right. So am I going first on what I thought of this ending, or are you
go get it?
You leave. Okay. So
I've been talking a lot, so go.
I did not like this ending.
No, that was awful.
At all. Look, there have been some explanations as to what possibly happened and what led to it happening, but the way that the show ends, Jonah has the shotgun. He's pointing it at the private investigator, former cop, whatever, after he goes through his long spiel. and then Jonah raises this shotgun, and we fade to black, and all we hear is a gunshot. So we're led to believe that Jonah shot this man. Now, we have talked, you and I, have we done all 4? Did I cop out of like season 3 or something? Have
No,
we done
I believe
all 4
we did all
seasons
4
on
of
this?
these. Yeah.
Okay. So we've seen Jonah's kind of progression from a child who had some kind of weird tendencies. We remember we were kind of worried he was a little bit of a psychopath at one point.
Yes.
And not to just point this out, but there are definitely issues with mental health history in Wendy's family.
Sure are.
So, you're wanting Jonah to make the right choices, and it seems like throughout this whole series he is. And then we get to this final shot of this final episode, a literal final shot, and he doesn't make the right choice, and it bothers me because that's the one person I wanted to get out of the family. The sister, she was smart enough to make her own decisions. She could get out of the bird's nest. If she get out the bird's mess, actually, if she get out of there,
nest mess,
great.
whatever.
Nest mess, whatever. If she could get out of there, great. But Jonah was an innocent kid who seemed like he loved his uncle. Why would he want to be with somebody that he knows?
Well, we didn't talk about it, and I don't want to spend another hour on this, but we do have to briefly mention the whole subplot of Wendy's dad. He was a drunk, and
so, we don't know that at the beginning. He comes off awful. He seems definitely like a decent guy.
Oh my God, his interaction with Ruth was so slimy.
Ooh, boy.
Oh, that was girls like you shouldn't curse and wear skirts and pants or like what?
He was on one.
He was a little, and I don't know how much of this is like a Hollywood thing or how much of it was purposeful, because it was like, let's see, we want to get the audience to root against him because he's a shitty person. Like, let's make him a little rapey. Like, he was just. When he started getting drinks in him, of course, he became a scuzz bucket. Yep.
And then that's where we learned that, as far as Wendy's childhood goes, he was probably a definite factor in regards to her mental health. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time. I found that I do want to mention her mental health breakdown to where she checked herself into a psych ward was pretty interesting, because she was going to either kill her dad or she needed to be institutionalized. She made a good decision. I
did laugh at the initial thing. Like, I'm going to hurt myself and others. That's fine. Please fill out this form. I don't want to use money. Like, it's a very real thing. But it also kind of felt like Keenan Ivory Wayne should have walked under the screen and yelled message. Because I'll tell you, that is the struggle in mental health services. He was like, we have 160 beds and 164 patients.
164 patients.
I was like, yeah, that's the stuff right there.
But I didn't like the fact that Marty was also kind of complicit in the fact that they're killing a private investigator and having his son actually do it. That seemed like we went from point A to point B, and we got there awful quick, in my opinion. It felt rushed. Like, if you wanted to make Marty fine with killing, the whole stuff down in Mexico really didn't make that seem to justify what he decided his own child could do.
So I'm going to say 2 things, and then we'll start to wrap. 1, I felt like the whole van thing was utterly unnecessary. It served the plot in no way. I thought that's how they were going to die. Yeah. They basically it's like, we need a hot opener, so we'll have them wreck in a van, which would have made a little bit more sense if the trucker was trying to kill them.
Right.
I don't it was a 2-lane highway and the trucker just it was just a freak accident.
Yeah, and they pull up at their house and they're all smiles. They're like, "Oh, we just got an accident."
Yeah, we're good. What was the point of any of this?
Well, it isn't. There is no van
for a show that kind of sets up all the dominoes and then knocks them all down very neatly, and everything is wrapped up nicely for you. It was one of those things where, like, why was this even necessary here? This served no purpose. It did nothing. Nothing came of it, and it was inconsequential. And it was like, but for why then? So I hated that. Yeah. I was sad that Ruth. It was kind of like when Lem, not Lem, yeah, I think when Lem gets blown up in the Shield, it was kind of one of those moments like, oh, of all the people who didn't get out of this, you know, I felt bad. Like one character kind of felt bad about. So that was emotional. But then, yeah, like Ruth dies, and that's sort of the emotional heart of this whole thing is she's gone. And then if you wanted to do like the semi-tragic, they get away with it in the end kind of a thing, like just have them go to Chicago, you know, kind of do like a Wire kind of flash forward of them being in the background as people are being elected and stuff. Like the wrap up with the PI felt underwhelming, but not in a good way. You know, like I use the words underwhelming and understated a lot to talk about like things like Jason Bateman's performance in the show and whatnot. But there's also underwhelming, like this was not a satisfying conclusion.
Right.
After 4 seasons of Ozark, I was not satisfied with that ending. And it's like, I could have been with Ruth being shot and them just wandering off into, you know, into Chicago successfully. And just, you know, I think The Wire did it best. Big surprise. But, you know, they McNulty and I can't remember the Black Op's name anymore. Are basically
Bunk?
told no, the old one, the one he gets caught at the end.
Oh,
for
I haven't been to the end yet.
You haven't been, oh shit, I don't want to give it away then. But but basically he's forced to retire.
Uh-huh.
McNulty and another officer and another detective, they are forced to retire. And part of what happens in season 5 is that he's got a homeless guy that he faked being murdered for a whole slew of reasons. But it turns out he just had him stashed away in a homeless shelter. And now he's got to go get him and bring him home. And he pulls over to this, and he's got him, and he pulls over to the side of the road, and he's sort of reflecting on things. And they play Down in a Hole one more time. And as they're playing Down in a Hole, you get a flash as to what's going on with people in the near future. Okay. So, you know, whatever became of all the people throughout 5 seasons of The Wire, that's satisfying. That feels like a finality to it. You know, another example, Oz, and I was talking to my wife about this. You know, Oz specifically didn't resolve certain things or started new plot lines because they wanted to set a tone, you know, a theme of prison never ever really ends. It just keeps going. So while the narrative of Oz drew to a close, thematically, they wanted to show the audience, you know, prison never stops. It just keeps going. And so Oz felt like there was a degree of finality to it without them conclusively drawing everything to a close. While this feels like they wrapped up the storyline, that whole bit with the PI just didn't feel satisfying to me. You know, watching Jonah after an entire season of him being mad at his family, and the only thing that changed was he didn't go with the grandfather because the grandfather was made to sound like a piece of shit directly in front of him because of Ruth. And like, that's enough. All is forgiven.
I think that is the only thing that the car wreck may possibly justify. The fact that after they all almost died, they realized that they're a family and they must stick together. And maybe that's what's going through Jonah's head. I can tell you that, okay, we don't see Jonah shoot anybody. We hear the gunshot go off. We can assume that Jonah's not going to shoot any of his other family members. So unless he kills the sister, which, well, holy crap, where'd that come from? But, right. You know, you are assuming that he shoots the PI, and that's the only reasonable assumption that you can have. So why he does it, there's just not enough there for me to say this character would make that decision.
Okay.
You agree?
Yeah, no, totally.
All right.
So overall, I liked most of, I mean, it only just sort of falls off a cliff for me. I don't think it's as bad as everyone makes The Sopranos out to be, where they just cut them off mid-sentence and it goes to black. But it had that, it's in that ballpark. It definitely had that vibe.
It definitely, yeah, it had that feeling. It had that feeling. You basically are just like, oh, you know, the Byrdes are going to hell. Great. All right. What a way to end Ozarks.
Yeah. It definitely kind of almost felt like, yeah, it didn't feel rushed. I don't want to completely slam it. It doesn't feel rushed, but it definitely kind of almost felt like, sort of out of ideas now. We still have the PI out there. And fine, we'll have Jonah shoot him. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah, he's
not quite everyone's complaining about Game of Thrones, but it does have that slight feel to it. Like, really, this is what we're doing? All right.
Yeah.
But the show is so well written that even like a kind of a crap ending is still better than most.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've had a lot of fun talking about this series.
Yeah. What did you think of the music in?
Oh, you know what? I really enjoyed Ruth's playlist there towards the end of the fourth season that she was
Nas
daydreaming about why. Yeah. Over and over and over.
Yeah. Well, Jesse, Nas is actually touring with the Wu-Tang Clan.
I hear that's for the children.
Wu-Tang is for the children. I actually got tickets for that. Me and a friend are going to go see Wu-Tang Clan and Nas.
Great.
And if you would like to play Wu-Tang Clan for your children, or Nas for that matter, we are giving away a free 30-day trial of the Amazon Music Unlimited service at getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network. Again, it's getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network for a free 30-day trial of the Amazon Music Unlimited service. All right, Jesse. So we're kicking off the week here in the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. Tomorrow, we've got I'm going to have the guys on from Talk the Keki, and David and myself and Robert Winfrey. We're going to review 2 anime movies. Bubble and
it
Bell.
Better be anime. I'm curious what else you would have these guys on.
I'm going to talk about, Operation Mincemeat. So we'll have a 5-person panel. I'm sure that's going to be a disaster, but we're going to be talking Bubble and Bell. Wednesday, we've got a re-airing of our Doctor Strange Damn You Hollywood from a few years ago. Yesterday, or rather today, we re-aired our talking about The Oath, which was fun. May the 4th be with you. We've got me and Jesse talking Shattered Empire from Star Wars, and in the evening, me, you, and Coop are going to be reviewing Rammstein Zeit. It's Cinco de Mayo this May 5th, and we're going to re-air our Brujeria Viva Presidente Trump review. And then that's that. That's all that's happening on the 5th. On the 6th, we will be airing our Bloodsport and For the Culture reviews from this 2022 GCW, the collective series of events. And then assuming I make it home in time, it's been a lot of that lately. That's why I don't have too many more of these booked for the rest of the year. Assuming I get home on time, we'll be covering the Canelo Alvarez Dimitri Bivol fight, one of the undercard fights fell out today, which I'm kind of upset about because I really like that heavyweight fight that was going to happen. What do you got going on, Jesse? And then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, hey, I've got all of May's shows already uploaded and ready to go. So May 11th, you can tune into the Source Material Comics feed. If you like comics, we're talking about them, especially 90s comics happening on the Unspoken Issues podcast. We're going to be talking Anarchy. That's right. We got an anarchist on the podcast. Dean Compton shows up. We got Derry on there. And if you like the Vigilante Anarchy from the 90s DC comics there, where he popped up in, we talk about 3 or 4 different stories.
I think Jesse froze. Jesse, did you freeze? All right. If Jesse comes back, I'll let him finish. Otherwise, I think Jesse's camera frozen. I don't know if he's coming back or not. Yeah, check out all of Jesse's podcasts on the Source Material Comics podcast feed here as part of the American Whammy, formerly known as W2M, going to be known as American Whammy very shortly. All right. With that said, this has been TV Party Tonight. For Jesse Starcher, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.